True. Automated.
We are here.
Live?
We are live.
You didn't even tell me
Oh,
that.
I'm in a Periscope. Oh, what am I going to put this against here? Here we go. Oh, good.
What if you put it inside?
There. Oh, sorry about that, everybody. There we go. All three people. There we go. But if you move your drink,
okay,
oh, it's empty. Okay. So thanks everybody so much. I hope you can hear me there in La La
Wow,
Land.
what a packed house we have tonight.
Woo!
Everyone can't see on the feed. All the people out here.
So what, just like a little bit in review, what have we discussed? So the first question we discussed was, why did God make poor people? In other words, why do we even have poor people? What's the purpose of being poor? And why doesn't, and if God cares about poor people, which clearly, the prophets and everybody speaks about, God cares about the poor people, well, why doesn't God take care of the poor people? Why does God make us take care of the poor people? So we learned that the part of our job is the perfection of humankind. We have a chance to emulate godliness, right, in our own lives, and benevolence, and giving to others is a form of benevolence. And we were given an imperfect world. That's the plan. God gave us an imperfect world. And also we learned that giving tzedakah, besides helping the world, it helps us because it helps refine our characters, right? We develop empathy, we reduce our selfishness, we view ourselves and others with a whole different way of thinking when we're involved in tzedakah. So whenever we give tzedakah, we improve our character. So remember, we learned what's better, to give $1,000 once or $1 1,000 times.
$1 1,000 times.
$1 1,000 times, exactly. Because every time you give the dollar, you're refining your character. Every time you give the dollar, you're literally rewiring yourself. Okay.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
So like let's say you have a tzedakah box at home that you throw stuff in whenever you go to daven or whenever.
Yes.
And then you go to
Okay.
give that money. When do you get the credit for that? Can you give that even for pouring time?
So the question was asked, I will answer right away. The question was, you have a little tzedakah pushka, you put money in it, and then when do you get credit for the tzedakah? You get credit for the tzedakah the minute it goes in the pushka. Right, the minute it goes in the pushka. Because, unless you're desperate, what goes in, you're going to give away. But you can't use that money on Purim because you've already given that money away.
Yeah.
I should say, no, you can give that money away on Purim, but it doesn't count for the tzedakah of Purim. Okay? All right. So, we discussed a little bit, not really, I didn't want to go too deep into how much tzedakah a person is supposed to give. Okay? We are supposed to tithe 1/10 of our earnings. That can be modified depending on certain things, but we're supposed to give a percentage of our earnings.
Is that gross or net?
So generally we say it's gross, unless the net, but it's not like net in, right, certainly. In your profits, it's your net profit, right? So if you were to sell something for $100, right, but you bought it for $60, you don't have to give $10 to tzedakah. You only made $40. You're only obligated on $4. But there might be ways, depending on a person, that you might actually be giving less than that if you have certain other things. Each person's, has to work it out for themselves. But the basic idea is it's off your profit.
Got it.
Okay. And it has to be given to the poor. Tzedakah is to the poor, right? We discussed giving. I love so many organizations. I love the American Heart Association, right? But that's not tzedakah. It is chesed. It's chesed. It's a great thing to do. But you can't get out of the obligation and still give to poor people. Because giving to poor people works on the world in a different way. But you say, wait a minute, the American Heart Association, disproportionate of their clients are poor. Doesn't matter. Tzedakah is money to poor people. Either you give it or an agent of yours gives it. And we're supposed to give within the Jewish community, but we also can give tzedakah to non-Jews.
What if there's a Jewish organization that gives money that collects money for like procedures for people?
No, it's if you sponsored a procedure for somebody who couldn't afford a procedure, that would be tzedakah,
Like a whole
right? Or
Just giving to
a portion
general
of
fund
it.
wouldn't
But I don't
necessarily-
think giving to a general fund because it's not really specific enough. But if you knew that they're collecting for a certain person to have a heart transplant, and you gave $100, even though it's going to cost $100,000, you have a piece of that.
This may have been
By the
covered
way,
in
out there
section-
in Periscope land, if you have any questions, shoot it to us. It's Torah on Tap. We're here at the Black Rose Tavern, one of the holiest places at the moment in Los Angeles.
This may have been covered in section 1 and 2.
Yes.
But what is the particular obligation that you're referring to when you speak about tzedakah, as opposed to?
Tzedakah, right? So
other
tzedakah is specifically the money. It has to be money.
No, but is there like a specific pasuk?
Oh,
that this
yes,
is,
yes,
like,
yes.
learned from?
Yes, you should. Yes, that's right. We can go back over that. I don't have it on this piece of paper that I'm handing out today. We don't have the exact source. It's on a previous paper. Okay.
Number 2.
Now we're going to discuss a fascinating thing called Maimonides' 8 levels of tzedakah. Okay. So now you might have heard of this before, but the Rambam, Maimonides, 1,000 years ago, he said not all tzedakah is created equally, right? And when you think about it, that makes a lot of sense, right? Because some acts of charity are going to have a bigger impact than others. And we're going to go through them pretty quickly. Okay, the first one. There are 8 levels of tzedakah, each greater than the next. The highest level above which there's no other is to strengthen the name of another Jew by giving them a present or loan, or making partnership with them, or finding them a job in order to fortify him so they no longer need tzedakah. Right? The biggest tzedakah you can give is to help a person get on their own. Get going on their own, right? To build up themselves. Notice he says to build up their name, right? Helping a person so they can become self-sufficient. That's the highest form of tzedakah. Next, one who gives tzedakah to the poor but does not know who he gives, nor does the recipient know who the benefactor is. Right? On Purim, if you give me money to distribute, you won't know who I'm giving it to, and they won't know who I got it from. So it's the second highest level of tzedakah. 3, one who knows to whom you're giving, but the recipient doesn't know. Okay? The recipient doesn't know. If you keep your identity hidden from the beneficiary of the charity, you are, that's the next rung down. The 4th rung. One does not know to whom he gives, but the poor person knows the benefactor. Okay? So, that might be, let's say, Tomchei Shabbos, okay? They have a list of all the people that gave to Tomchei Shabbos for the month, right?
Right.
20 different families. So the poor person knows that my food that I got is thanks to these 20 families. But those 20 families, they don't know who the tzedakah went to. Okay, so that's the 4th level. Okay? The next level. Hi from Arabia. Oh, we're getting some, thank you. Hi from Palestine. Great, excellent. Love you out in Palestine. Give tzedakah. Okay, is tzedakah more than money? No, tzedakah is only money. Tzedakah is only money. You can give somebody a beer or some suntan lotion, and that's very nice, but it's not tzedakah, right? It's chesed. It's righteousness. It's good. Don't not give it, but it's not. Tzedakah has to be. What's the word I'm looking for?
Money.
Money. Thank you. Money. Okay. Your beard looks nice. Thank you. God bless you too. I'm growing it out. Okay. All right. Next. I've always heard tzedakah is righting the injustice of the world. It seems to lessen the concept. Tzedakah lessen the injustice of the world. Yes, tzedakah does help to lessen the injustice of the world, but that's actually not its point. In other words, a poor person might not be poor because of injustice. They might be poor because because of the society's just not rich. And some people have and some people don't. Tzedakah is about redistributing God's money. The money all, as we explained for you, the money all belongs to God. God gives us the money so we can use it and distribute it, right? And so is a lot of pressure. If you're the guy with the $1 billion, there's a lot more pressure on you, than if you're the guy with the $100, okay? So it's not that it's not righting an injustice. In some cases, it might be the person's poor because of injustice, right? But it's not necessarily. We look at, that's where.
Well, I think what would bring out the point would be more dramatic is, let's say, in an opposite case. Let's say if somebody, squandered their money.
Right.
Let's say somebody had an inheritance or something and squandered it.
Okay.
Or however they got their money and squandered it. Then is there still an obligation to help that? Now that person becomes poor, but it was partly to their own fault in a certain sense.
Right. So even if a person lost all their money because of poor business decisions, we still have an obligation to help them. I know it's amazing. Like even the person who was not a good tzedakah giver when they had a lot of money, and now they're poor, we have to give them. In other words, like you can't say, well, you didn't give when you had. We're not able to punish. Okay, somebody asked here, where does it say they have to give money? So we learn it from Devarim. So you can look this up whoever's listening. From Devarim, that's Deuteronomy 15, verse 7 through 11. Okay, that's where it comes down, which is, and then it's discussed in the Shulchan Aruch and so forth. Okay, the next level of tzedakah. Below this is one who gives before he's asked. Okay, you know a person's in need, and you just give them money. They didn't even ask for it. Okay, before that is one who gives after being asked. A guy's on the street, he says, "Can I have any change?" Yes. Below that is one who gives to the poor less than sufficiently, but gladly with a smile. Okay, right? He gives. There's this, he gives. There's the poor guy. He's like, I need $1, to buy a coffee, right? And you give him a dime, but you smile about it. Here, I hope you get enough dimes together for your coffee. Well, you did a mitzvah, but we're getting down to the bottom of the barrel here. Okay, the lowest form of a mitzvah of tzedakah, but it's still tzedakah, is giving begrudgingly. I know you don't understand that it's just money. Don't worry, it's okay. We've been convinced by the society, the Jewish society around us, that tzedakah is anything good which you do for another person. That's called tzedek. It falls under the general gemilut chasidim, right? Doing good stuff in the world, being a good person, doing good things. That's gemilut chasidim. Helping people who are poor is also tzedek. If you give a blanket to a poor person, if I give you a blanket, you're poor, I did tzedek. I didn't do tzedakah. Now we also learned, by the way, to remember how important it is that it's money, because money is like fire. It has the power to create and to destroy. And only by actually using money to give tzedakah do we actually take money and transform it into something holy. When we do the act of tzedakah. If I convert it to a blanket and then give a blanket, I've done a good thing. Don't want to take it away. But I haven't done tzedakah. Now, by the way, some people say, well, how do I know, Rabbi, they're not going to just use that money on drugs? That's why I want to buy them a sandwich,
Good point.
right? Okay, well, it's not up to us to decide how they spend their money. It's a very hard one. Very hard one. Okay, now we're gonna go for the highest level of tzedakah, okay, which we discussed before. Providing a loan and making a partnership are the highest form, right? You know what? Listen, let's go into business together. I'm going to provide the capital. You're going to do the work, and you're going to have a job because I'm going to provide. That's the highest form. Getting a person into business on their own, that's great. Or giving them a loan, of course, without interest, right? That the person, has to pay back, but they don't have to add interest to it. So look here in the Talmud, it says, providing a loan, making partnership. Rabbi Abba says, in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, one who lends money is greater than one who performs tzedakah, and he who forms a partnership is greater than all. Okay? That is how the Rambam learns that that's the highest form of tzedakah. Okay?
This is saying that someone who lends money with the expectation that they get it back is greater than someone who just gives it outright.
Correct. Because when you're loaning money to somebody, it's for the purposes of helping them get on their feet, right? So that then that's as a person would rather get a loan than a handout. Not just embarrassment. They'd rather say, I got this loan, and I'm going to be able to give it back someday, rather than just that really brings a person can bring a person down. Okay. So now Rabbi Yehuda Chassid, crack hill, same thing. Do you like Israel? I love Israel. I'm drinking an IPA with our group here. Everybody, l'chaim, everybody. L'chaim. Oops. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda Chassid. There is a form of tzedakah that does not seem like tzedakah, but it is tzedakah considered by God. When a poor person has merchandise to sell, a book that no one wants to buy, and you buy it from him, so too if a poor person wants to be a scribe, but no one wants to hire him, you hire him, there's no greater tzedakah. Right? You see the schlepper who's selling the pens? You don't need a pen. You buy the pen from the schlepper. Rabbi Yehuda Chassid, who wrote Sefer Chassidim, said that's the highest form. So that's even higher than Maimonides' thing, right? Because you're helping him have a job that nobody even needs, right? It's pretty crazy. Okay, let's go to the next thing. I didn't see your last thing; it went by too fast. So you gotta tweet it again. Whoever tweeted. So trying to keep an eye on everybody.
Very interactive. I like that.
Very interactive. Very interactive.
Keep my attention.
Very interactive. Okay. Now, in the Talmud, Mar Ukba had a poor man in his neighborhood. Okay? Into his door socket, he used to throw 4 zuz every day. Right? He'd slip money through the door for this poor guy. Once the poor man decided, I will go and see who's doing this kindness to me. On that day, Mer Ukba was late at the house of study, and his wife was coming home with him. As soon as the poor man saw them moving the door, he went out after them. But they fled from him and entered an oven from which the fire had just been swept. In other words, it was better to be burned. Better he wanted to get burned. Why am I rocking back and forth? It's just the style of my teaching. I'm sorry. Yes, you should give tzedakah when you do in the middle of your davening, before you get to Baruch Hu. That's when you give tzedakah, during the Song of the Sea. Okay. In other words, rather than embarrass a person in the act of giving tzedakah, you can subject yourself to a hot burning fire. Okay? Seems a little extreme, I know, but that's the way it goes. Okay. Rashi, kindness refers to the effort involved. Okay? So Rashi is going to tell us that good. You want to give it during Shir Shel Yam. Okay? Good. Okay, Rashi, check this out. Rashi, by the way, well-to-do businessman, right? He didn't get paid to study. Rashi had a good business. Okay? The giving is the actual tzedakah, while the effort involved is the kindness. Wow. Ready? The giving is the tzedakah, the effort is kindness, such as bringing it to their house or exerting themselves in another way. Now he says giving baked bread appropriately close to our money when produce is readily available, so Cooper doesn't have to waste his money. In all cases, the person pays attention to the will benefit preference. So Rashi's saying it doesn't have to be money. Rashi's saying if you give the guy a fresh loaf of bread and so forth, he's saying that's tzedakah. But we don't actually. I don't think we poskin like. I don't think we rule like that. But it's clear that if you want to say that that's you're going to be a Rashi, you're going to give out fresh baked bread. I guess you have somebody to be depend on. A pretty strong opinion, right? Okay, now caring for the emotional needs of the poor, okay, is part of tzedakah. So we learn that you're supposed to greet every person with a pleasant face, right? Where does it say? Anybody? Remember? Anywhere? Where does it say it? Pirkei Avos. That's right. Pirkei Avos. Greet everybody. Hey, everybody. Greet everybody with a smile, right? It's a mitzvah. Okay. What does this mean? What does this mean? It teaches us that even a person who gives someone the most precious gifts in the world, but his face is gloomy, then the Torah considers as if he gave nothing. But one who greets his friend with a pleasant countenance is considered to have given the best gift in the world, even if they didn't give any gifts at all. You give somebody a big smile. I mean, this happens every day where I go to daven. I might run out of quarters or something. I say, I'm sorry, I'm out. Please. I smile. What are you going to do? And I'm not like, I try not to ignore somebody. Ignoring's not nice. If I'm in the middle of something, I can't interrupt. But it's good. It's a good test. All right. So the Shulchan Aruch says it's halacha. You have to give with a smile, with joy and a good heart, empathizing with the plight of the poor person, offering words of comfort. It's going to get better. It's going to be okay. Things are going to get better for you. If one gives with a sad face, you lose the benefit of giving. Whoa! You hear that? You lose the benefit. If you gave $100, but you frowned, it's tough, huh? Okay. So as the summary says, all of the levels of tzedakah have to do with the integrity of the person, maintaining their emotional health, their well-being. We're very concerned for the person who doesn't have money. They're vulnerable, and we have to be careful and sensitive to them. Hi from the IDF. Awesome. And beers. Yes, l'chaim. L'chaim already, l'chaim. It's almost Purim. And thank you for the hearts. Thank you. L'chaim for the hearts. All right. We've had consistently like 15, 20 people watching. Okay. When Hashem says to care for the poor widow and convert, does the convert have to be looked after now? Yes, absolutely. You have to look after the convert. But actually, the translation you're using is not correct. The translation is the stranger. The poor, the widow, the stranger. The ger, the Torah, when the Torah talks about a ger, it's referring to a ger toshav, a stranger among you, right? You also have to look after the convert. That's a different halacha. But the halacha the person asked about is you have to take care of the convert, and it's really the pasuk is the widow, the orphan, and the stranger.
That's a separate pasuk from Ki'ir Yisem Ve'eretz Mitzrayim.
Correct.
There's a separate prohibition
to right. There's a separate. There's multiple prohibitions about how to treat the strangers because we were strangers in the land of Egypt, and there are other places where you learn you have to give tzedakah to the. I mean, you have to help. You have to show kindness to converts. There's a special commandment that says you're not allowed to oppress a convert. What does it mean? You can't tell a convert, huh, you might be a good Jew, but man, your father was one of the best idol worshippers I ever saw. You can't can't do that. That's considered oppressing a convert. I mean, he was in the Guinness Book, one of the top 10 idol worshippers of 1908. Okay. Okay. Tzedakah, taking care of the poor. We inculcate positive values in ourselves, and we develop our character, so we become givers instead of takers. If you've ever been to a funeral where there's a lot of people, it's because they were givers, right? They were givers. They were givers. And I'm not talking about famous people. I'm just talking about random people. If they were givers, people want to show their respect when they die. Okay, we're also becoming partners in God when we give. Our true Jewish essence, our true essence when we give. So the mitzvah of tzedakah offers us eternal reward in this life and the next life. Tzedakah is one of the most powerful things we can do. The Rambam tells us that a person must be very careful about their mitzvah of tzedakah more than any of the other commandments. Tzedakah is the trademark of Avram Avinu. It says, "For God chose him because I know he will pass on his heritage to his progeny, and they will thus keep the path of God, doing justice and tzedakah." You see, it's a quote. It's a quote from the Torah. Oh, it's a tzedek umishpat. Doing mishpat is justice, and tzedakah is tzedakah. So the throne of Israel and the true faith only stand upon the merit of tzedakah. Okay. Someone who is cruel and doesn't give compassion. The Rambam says that if a person is cruel, maybe they're not actually Jewish. He says being charitable is part of the DNA. We got it from our ancestors. And if you're cruel, you're not compassionate. He says maybe you're not, maybe your lineage is not what you claim to be. Maybe you're just a poser. Okay. So again, the paragon of giving is Avram Avinu, and I will add Sarah Imenu, right? Avram and Sarah were the ultimate givers. Okay? And we called Avram, even in his name, Avram, father of elevation. By giving to others, Avram and Sarah saw that that he was a source of bestowment of blessing. He was elevated because he showed he was spiritually full and therefore not in need of material fixes to fill him up. Those who hold on to their money show that they require outside material import on a continuous basis. Okay, ironically, this cuts them off from the source of real blessing. When a person doesn't give tzedakah, they're cutting off from real blessing. And they will ultimately have less money than if they had been more willing to part with it. A giver is more full. He's overflowing, giving to others. Thus, puts him in harmony with God, whose real purpose is creating a world that was able to give. Charity and loans make good common sense, but there's no society other than ours that mandates them as part of the law. Now, the blessing, right? We assume blessing, we think money. But blessing could also be health. Blessing could also be having children who are menschlich or respect. I mean, blessing comes in many ways. And right? And as I said last time, if you have $1 million in the bank, but you get the bill in the mail from the doctor for $999,999, right? What good's your $1 million? What good's your $1 million? If my great grandfather's Jewish, what does Jewish mean, and is that a race or a faith? Jewish is a people. It's a nation, and if your great-great-grandfather was Jewish, that means you have Jewish roots, and you should learn about Judaism. It doesn't mean you are Jewish, but it means you're a descendant of someone who is Jewish. Okay. Chaim. Now, the Rambam tells us, you're welcome. You're welcome. The Rambam tells us that there's no such thing as a Jewish community that doesn't have a tzedakah fund. You can't have a Jewish community that doesn't have a tzedakah fund. Okay. All Jewish people in their communities have to have a tzedakah fund. It's a law. Okay. Usually it's looked over by two people, minimum of two people. Now today we have these big cities and so forth, things are a little different. Usually rabbis act as agents of tzedakah, you have organizations that do tzedakah and so forth. Now, if that wasn't enough to convince you how righteous tzedakah is, tzedakah also has protective power. Okay? Protective power. Look at page 23. King Solomon wrote in Proverbs, treasures of wickedness will not avail, but tzedakah will save from death. Riches will not avail on the day of wrath, but tzedakah will save from death, right? Tzedakah tatzil mimavet. The Talmud tells us later, why are there seemingly similar references to tzedakah in Proverbs? Right? Those are two sentences. They seem very similar. One teaches that tzedakah protects against an unnatural death, while the other teaches that tzedakah protects against the judgment after death, right? So when you give tzedakah, you protect yourself from an unnatural death and from being judged harshly in the world to come. The Chafetz Chaim, a beautiful idea. Why? How does it work that tzedakah protects from death? Is it a magic force field? What happens? So the Chafetz Chaim tells us, great is tzedakah since it has the ability to save someone from death. The way a person behaves is the way he is responded to in kind. When a person gives tzedakah in the world, his intention that the funds will enable the poor person to live and not die. Therefore, God's intention that the benefactor will live and not die. Right? When you give the tzedakah to a poor person so they don't die, you're literally preventing death. So God's going to see you preventing the death of this person, and they're going to give you more money, and going to give you life. We don't think about it when we give tzedakah, how it's rescuing a person's life. But mamish, sometimes you really are saving a life by the money you give. So the Chafetz Chaim says, what's the question? You give money, you save someone's life, so God's going to look after your life. So, now, we even see that you can build up a bank account of tzedakah. In other words, I give tzedakah every day, right? Please God, every day I give tzedakah. Certainly I try. But does that mean that every day I'm being saved from an unnatural death? God forbid. Or in other words, where does that all go? So the Eliyahu Zuta says, if you look in Isaiah, look in the book of Isaiah, it says, and your charity shall go before you, the glory of God will gather you in. When a person passes from the world having given charity and done good deeds, their charity and their good deeds go before them to find them a good resting place. They intercede before Hashem on their behalf and do not let the prosecuting angels denounce them. This is what it means. In other words, I might never need to cash in even in this lifetime, but that bank account I've done of good deeds that I've created, that bank account of good deeds, that is now going to protect me in the next life. Hi, welcome. In the Radin Yeshiva, there was a free loan society, which was run. The angels protect us through tzedakah. It's true. The angels protect us through tzedakah. That's right. Thank you for the hearts. Thank you for the hearts. In the Radin Yeshiva, Radin was the place where the Chafetz Chaim had his yeshiva. Okay, Radin. The Free Loan Society was run by students. Okay. Once the Chafetz Chaim asked one of the most esteemed students to take over administering the fund. The student, who was very, very diligent, said, I only want to learn Torah. I don't want to waste my time administering the tzedakah fund. Right? I want to be learning Torah. Why are you making me miss out on my learning? Right? So the Chafetz Chaim opened the Talmud. Right? Chafetz Chaim knows the Talmud backwards and forward. Right? Chafetz Chaim opens the Talmud to Rosh Hashanah, page 18a, and he points to the text. Turn the page. Right? Chafetz Chaim. How many volumes? Right? He just opens the Talmud. Look at this sentence.
700 pages, and he pulls the right one.
Right? Abaya and Rava came from a family whose descendants died early. However, since they both studied Torah, they lived a longer life. Rava, who is giving Bernie Sanders is not tzedakah. Giving his campaign money is not tzedakah. You can do that. It's fine. You're welcome to. But tzedakah has to be a poor person. And I don't think Bernie Sanders qualifies as a poor person. Okay, Rava studied Torah and lived to 40 years, while Abaye, who studied Torah and performed acts of chesed, lived 60 years. Okay? So, yes, you're not going to learn Torah now. You're interrupt your Torah study now. That's okay, because you're going to live a longer life. And you'll have more time to study Torah. So right now, you're going to take a break from your Torah learning to administer the fund. But in the big picture, Torah learning with giving to your shul, giving to a shul, is that tzedakah? No, it is not tzedakah. It is meiser. It's meiser, which is tithing, but you can just decide how much you want to give. But it's definitely a mitzvah to give to your local shul, and it is considered supporting the community, Gemilas Chasadim, because it helps everybody and so forth. So it's a big mitzvah, but the tzedakah we have to work on giving to poor people. It's all about the poor people here. And now, you have that they say, what's the thing they say? The gift that keeps on giving. What's that? What? Anonymous tzedakah is the best way, unless you're going to help the person actually get a job. That's the top way. What is with the gift that keeps on giving? What's that? Well, it's tzedakah. The person receiving. Does the person giving tzedakah have to be poor? Yes, they have to be poor. This is called the yarmulke. It has to be poor. The person has to be poor. Even if, and by the way, if they were used to living well, you're supposed to let them live well again. You can't say, well, when you were rich, you lived there, but now that you're poor, you're gonna have to live in a 1-bedroom, condo with your 25 kids. No, you have to help them, and they have to live like a mensch. Okay, the gift that keeps on giving. How? Free consultations does not count as tzedakah, but it is a mitzvah. We're all about giving money to people who are in need. Okay, the Talmud tells us, what is the implication? Tithe, you shall surely tithe. Tithe so that you will become rich. Okay, that's what it's telling us. If you look, there's a play on words in the Talmud. You tithe your money so you become rich. Literally, by taking helping a friend with bills is a huge, that's tzedakah. You're paying, that's paying off their debts is tzedakah. Paying off their bills is tzedakah. Okay, hold on 1 second. Let me get this idea, then you can ask your questions away. If your friend isn't poor. If your friend isn't poor, you're welcome to help them, but it's not necessarily tzedakah. Right. Okay. Listen to this idea. Ready? It doesn't make sense rationally, but when you take $100 bill and you give $10 of a tzedakah, you actually make the $100 go farther. Right? Because your God is going to repay you for the money you've given away more than you've given. In the time, okay, look down at this. Look at the very bottom, number 3, okay? If you see a person distributing their money to charity, be assured that he will be blessed with more. As it is written, there are those who distribute and get more. Said Reb Shimon ben Gamliel in the name of Reb Yochanan, if you see a person who holds back from charity, be assured that they will lose money. As it is written, one who holds back from doing righteousness will lose out. When a person gives out tzedakah, they're never going to lose. And by the way, a very rich philanthropist once told me, I said, I'm asking people for money. He said, Yona, nobody ever gave away their money and they can't eat lunch to you, right? Nobody ever, I'm not raising money for poor people, I'm raising money for my programming, but nobody ever became poor giving tzedakah. Just doesn't happen. A person who gave tzedakah might become poor because of other factors, right? Because their business tanked, or look here, their business tanked, right? They lost all their investments. I'm sorry you don't feel engaged in the conversation. Is the same to give tzedakah to a Jew or non-Jew? Both poor. Yes, you need to give tzedakah to a Jew and a non-Jew. We give to both, and there are differences of opinions on that. We can go into more depth. Okay, so it does seem hard to give because we live in a listen, people don't give because they're afraid. What happens? What if I need the money? What if I need the money? You know what? A person needs to save. The Talmud teaches a person should save, but that doesn't prevent us from giving. Right? You have to give. Okay. Now, this is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Ready for this one? Rabbi Israel Meir Kagan, the Chafetz Chaim, he says again here. Ready? Ready for this one? Here we go. The Chafetz Chaim. Oops, sorry about that. Okay. It is mentioned in the book of Eliezuta. Yitzhak was only praised for his charity, as is written, and Yitzhak planted in the land. Planting refers to charity. Okay? Meaning, just as one desires to plant his field, even though at the time of planting he's throwing away his grain in the ground, nevertheless he's sure that eventually the harvest will come more. So too, when you give charity, you should know that God will bless him for doing the mitzvahs many more times than he originally gave from your belonging. When I throw all the seeds into the ground as a farmer, and they all are going to rot, and they're going to become moldy and everything, it looks like I'm throwing stuff away. Right? If I throw seeds in the ground, it looks like I'm throwing something good away. But I know that I'm going to be able to reap a whole field soon. Tzedakah is the same. Every quarter that you give out to a person, every dollar that you give out to a person is like planting a little bit of a tree. It's creating a world, a forest of chesed. Okay. Look at this little story here. At the University of Pittsburgh's Western Psychiatric Institute, there was a Korean doctor who told me that he had been orphaned in the war. He had been cared for by an agency that received funds from charitable donors, mostly from the United States. I was able to eat and have clothes because someone gave money for hungry kids they did not know. Whenever I take care of patients, I always think, this may be the person that saved my life, and I'm extra careful. Isn't that beautiful? That might be the person who saved his life. Okay. Tzedakah gives us guaranteed returns. There's not one, right? All the funds, you're a financial advisor, right? They all say, right, past performance is no guarantee of future returns. Guess what? In tzedakah, it is. In tzedakah, it is. Rav Yochanan met a young son of Resh Lakish. He said, recite to me the verse you've learned today. The son said, you shall surely tithe. What is the meaning of these words? Give tithes that you may become rich. The boy said, how do you know this stuff? Rav Yochanan replied, go test it yourself. So, the boy said, is it permissible to test the Holy One, blessed be He? For isn't it written, you shall not test God? Rabbi Yochanan said, thus said Reb Hoshaya, The case of tithe giving is an exception to the general prohibition of testing God. As it's written in Malachi and the prophets, bring all the tithes into the storehouse that there may be food in my temple, and thereby test me, says God. See if I will not open for you the windows of heaven and provide for you endless blessing. It's unbelievable, right? You might think I'm testing God on this. And Malachi comes 2,000 years ago and says, you're allowed to test God on tzedakah. Okay, look it down. Look at number 2. The reason for this promise is that this mitzvah, more than others, presents a person with a challenge. How is it possible that in giving money away to charity, he will thereby become richer than before? God says, don't let this puzzle you. Don't let it puzzle you. Shalom. When we give charity, we are assured that we're going to have something to live off of. And by the way, if a person loses all their money after having given charity, you can say, what happened to that person? Well, I thought they were promised an income. God also tests us. But that person, much better to be tested having performed all that tzedakah beforehand than to be tested not having performed any tzedakah. Because if you were the guy who gave the tzedakah for 20 years and now you're asking, are people going to help you? They are, right? Right? If you gave tzedakah for 20 years and now you have nothing, you can go to people and they're going to help you because you were generous. But if you were the guy for 20 years who didn't give a dime and now you have nothing, you're going to have a harder time. So it pays to give no matter what the situation is. Now, we're not going to become impoverished from giving tzedakah. Okay. So guys, we're going to sum up the class and then we'll have time for questions, okay? Let's review. If God doesn't want there to be poor people, why doesn't He take care of them Himself? 1, because God wants us to fix the world. And 2, God wants us to refine our character. By giving tzedakah, we're refining our character. We're becoming better people. 2, how much am I supposed to give? We're supposed to give 10% of our profits to charity. You're allowed to give more, but not more than 20%. Okay? Excuse me. Wait, hold on. Let me rephrase that. We're supposed to give 10% of our net income. However, that is a custom. That's a custom. If you look here, Jewish law does not determine to whom tzedakah must be given unto the poor people. Wait, scratch that. I'm getting a little bit lightheaded. Maybe it's the beer. We're supposed to give 10%, but who the 10% goes for is up to us. Okay, one more time. We give 10%, but we get to decide how we're going to do it. We might want to say we want to give it all in loans, or we might want to all give it this. The problem is if you're giving tzedakah in loans, you pay it back. You don't get to use that money again. Right? If I gave money as a loan, and someone gave me the money back, I have to reloan that money to somebody else. So it's not like somebody wanted to get a tax deduction. They called the shul. They said, I want to loan somebody money. Can I give you the money? And you'll give them money, then they'll pay me back. I said, that's called laundering. You got your money back and you got a tax deduction. That's why they shut down charities. He said, oh, okay. Yeah, so if you want to give me money, I'll give it to them, but there cannot be any stipulation that they're paying you back. They could have a stipulation that they pay back the shul. That's different. Okay. By the way, we're supposed to give first to family members, then to neighbors, then to fellow citizens, then to the poor of the land of Israel, and then the world. Okay? Let's do it again. First, who do we give to? Our family. Secondly, our neighbors. Third, fellow citizens in the same city. Next, the poor of the land of Israel. And finally, the world. Is there an ideal form of charity? The best form of charity is that which appears to the recipient not to be charity. Does not most, okay? The best is to set them up in business, to give them a job, to give them a right, or to give them a loan to start a business. However, we learn that there's 8 levels, and then every one of from there on is going to be money, except for Rashi, who says you can give them a bread or so forth. But for practical purposes, I don't think people should do that unless that's really they feel they have to. And maybe that's the answer to some people who are not generous enough because they're not sure where the money's going. They're thinking the guy's using drugs. So for that person, I'd say, okay, then for the person who thinks a drug, you give them food, but everybody else you should be giving money to. Right? By the way, if a person comes to your door that you don't know, they ask for $100. Doesn't mean you have to give them $100. You have to give them something. You just don't have to give them what they ask for. You're under no obligation to give somebody you don't know and you don't know their situation what they ask for. If you do the work and you research their situation, you find out, wow, they really have this and this and this and this and this, and they really aren't deserving of it, then you know you can and you are encouraged to give more. But if you don't know the person, you don't have to give more than a quarter, really. And you've done tzedakah. Obviously, I'd like everybody to give more, but you give what you can. Okay, what's better, giving $1,000 with a smile or a frown? Right, giving with a smile, right? Even if you give a quarter. What about giving to a charity for children with disabilities who are not poor? Giving to a charity that helps disabled people is tzedek. Tzedek. It is righteousness. It's a big mitzvah. It's not tzedakah. Okay? Okay. What benefits? Good character trait, protect us from death, and protect our income. I mean, that's pretty good. Make us a better person, ensure that we have a livelihood, and protect us from unnatural death. I don't see, and that's why people say it's the greatest mitzvah in the Torah. Because there's no single mitzvah that we know has such a benefit to us and to humanity. There's not, and the only one, we say Talmud Torah connected Kulam, right? We say learning Torah is connected to like all the mitzvahs, but what do we just learn from the Chafetz Chaim? The Chafetz Chaim said, take a break from your Torah study and go help with the tzedakah. Right? Hey, how's it going? Welcome back. Welcome back. Okay, now it's time for anybody's questions. Here or online. Also keeps us covered by Hashem. Yes, thank you. Keeps us covered by Hashem. That's right. Hashem's looking out for the people who are doing Hashem's work. When people give tzedakah and they're doing God's work by redistributing the money, God is looking out for them in a stronger way. Pay school family who's not your family. Is it tzedakah? They're poor. What about the soup kitchen? Okay. Serving food in the soup kitchen is not tzedakah. It's tzedek. It's a big mitzvah. Big mitzvah, and we all have to do stuff like that. Blood donation is not tzedakah. Helping with children's tuition. That's a very interesting thing because you might want to ask your own rabbi. There's different,
Wouldn't that go under like teaching a man to fish?
The power went out. But we still have power because we're learning tzedakah.
Wouldn't that go under like
teaching a man to fish?
Teaching someone a profession or studying someone up because you need that education in order to get ahead.
Maybe.
And so if you enable that education, then that enables...
So you want to say that by helping them... I don't know. Here's how I would rule. And if giving money to the school's fund for scholarships, there is a mitzvah for every parent to educate their child. If they can't do it, they have to hire somebody to educate their child. So I would say helping to offset their costs of education is probably tzedakah. It probably is tzedakah. Okay. But here's a question, of course, is you're also in a Jewish school, you're also underwriting their secular education too. Anyway, that's why I say ask your personal rabbi. I would tend to say, because I believe that education should be accessible to all kids.
Aren't those skills also important in making? I mean, if the goal is to get someone to make a living,
correct? Yeah.
Then those skills are also going to be required.
Was that only one beer the whole talk? Yes, only one beer the whole talk. I know, looked like the cup that kept giving, right? Okay, next question. From Periscope or from the room here? Thank you for the hearts. Thank you. L'chaim, l'chaim. Show the love. Show the love. Anybody? Questions? Questions? Questions. That's it? Hi, Rabbi. Where are you running from? Rabbi Liadi. Where are you from? Okay. So I want to share with you guys one thought on non-Orthodox conversion. It's a good start. It's a good start. I worked your Shabbat tent. Woohoo! Shabbat tent. What about Jews or non-Jews? Yes, you have to give to people in your town. Correct. Correct. You give to people in your town. That includes Jews and non-Jews, unless you live in an all-Jewish town, which some people do, but most people live in a town with other non-Jews. I want to share with you a thought, everybody. This is the month of Purim, and it says, I can discuss with you about conversion things. Hold on, we can talk afterwards, but this is Tzedakah right now. Pardon me. Okay, listen to this. I had this idea, just came to me yesterday. Mishenichnas Adar Marbim Besimcha. When Adar comes, we're supposed to increase joy. When you give tzedakah to a poor person, you're making them happy. You're making them happy. So, any giving is making, any gift we give, really, the joy of Adar is about giving. Mishloch manot, right? Giving gifts, giving tzedakah. That's the joy. We always think we're supposed to be partying and living it up and being freilich and so forth. And that's not a bad thing. But it's really about giving. That is the joy. And what does that fix? What does that fix? Ready? What does it say in the same sentence? It says, Mishanichnas Adar Marbim Simcha. Before that, what does it say? Kishem Mimatim Be'av. Okay, we lessen our joy in Av, the month of Av. We lessen our joy, and in why were the temples destroyed?
Because of baseless hatred.
Baseless hatred. The temple was destroyed from baseless hatred. People weren't giving to each other. People weren't unified. So one of the ways we fix the sin of that destroyed the temples and brought on the sadness is by creating unity, by giving and sharing with each other. L'chaim to that one.
Chaim.
Thank you. If you'd like to talk about conversion, feel free to send me a message on Twitter to Rabbi Yonah. We can continue the conversation in direct message. L'chaim. I want to wish you on Periscope, I want to wish all the people here a wonderful, joyous, freilich Purim with lots of giving. Give more than you think you can give, and you'll feel good about yourself and make the world a better place. Take care, everybody. Bye. Thank you for the love.